This is the SiriusXM NBA radio postgame show, of course, heard on Channel 86 and the SiriusXM app. I have been a long-time follower of this man, Brandon Scoop V. Robinson. He has been doing this for a long time. 12 years old, in fact. This man has been on the airwaves talking NBA. V. Scoop, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing good, just working hard and staying busy. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Now, listen, got to get right to it. I saw your reporting on Ja Morant on social media. You have done a wonderful job of carving out this part of your career and gaining access to so many of these guys that would be dream gets for so many of us. This has not been a season to be desired for Ja Morant. I'm not saying anything you don't know. This was a guy 2, 3 years ago that was one of the faces of the sport. Some people would say it's been quite the downfall for Ja, but I still think there'd be teams interested in him, given how great he was just a couple of years ago when he was a top 5 point guard in the association. In terms of your latest reporting on what his future looks like, can you share with us the latest from B Scoop?
Yeah, so I dropped an article earlier today over at scoopy.com in the blog section where I talked about a multitude of things. And one of the things that I discussed was actually, firstly, the Grizzlies' last home game of the season on Monday, where they played the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they actually had a fan appreciation night. And it seems like there's just this disconnect for the grip between the Grizzlies and Ja for this reason. All of the players on the team had a jersey giveaway to the fans, and the only player on that team, even though he was sitting on the bench in street clothes, that did not give a jersey to a fan was Ja Morant. And from folks that I've spoken with, familiar with that situation, there are people who believe that that may have been the writing on the wall. There's a disconnect between both Ja and the Grizzlies front office. And, I implored even more, just or inquired even more rather, just about, what his future holds and what it is that the player wants. And he has no preferred destination for a team if he were to be moved by the Memphis Grizzlies. But I'm told that the team that he would like to go to, if he's moved, is a team um, that will showcase his talent and his love for the game of basketball that he still has. There's been a lot of reporting just about Ja selling his house for $3.5 million. I inquired about that, and it was told to me that just because that house is being moved or being sold doesn't mean that he wants to leave. And he has two other residences in the Memphis area that he resides in and more. So there were teams that were interested in Ja and his services back at the trade deadline, Miami being one of them, the Milwaukee Bucks also being one of them, as well as the Sacramento Kings, as well as the New Orleans Pelicans, another organization that, did have a conversation with the Grizzlies at the deadline. And there was a discrepancy on draft picks. And that was kind of how that conversation with the New Orleans Pelicans ended. I was told from a league source that DeJounte Murray as well as Jordan Poole were a conversation that both New Orleans and Memphis were having. And on the other side with Memphis, it would have been a deal that included both Ja Morant as well as Kentavious Caldwell Pope. But the one discrepancy that was involved was a draft pick that New Orleans wanted and Memphis didn't want to give up. Memphis has quite a bit of picks. So there's just been conversations about different things. And I think this offseason you'll see more of those conversations being had amongst, the Grizzlies and other teams in the offseason.
And again, we are joined by Brandon Scoop V. Robinson, somebody that you can find all of his work on scoopv.com. He has been a national NBA insider for quite some time. You followed all of Ja Morant's career. I remember when they were commemorating the NBA and doing the 75th anniversary edition. It was Luca, it was SGA, and it was Ja. Okay, that's how highly the NBA thought of Ja Morant at that time. Scoopy, he's been an afterthought. I mean, granted, injuries have taken place. It's not even so much the off the court issues. It's just his body not being what it once was even a couple of years ago. The explosiveness is nowhere what it used to be. Where do you see Ja Morant next year in terms of his superstar or even star status? Because I just don't see him being the same player anymore.
Um, I had been saying since the fall that Milwaukee would have been a primary destination. Of course, this was back a little bit before Thanksgiving, before things kind of imploded, and there was a disagreement on the court with he and his coach, and that happens all the time. But I think because
Sure.
of Ja. Growing up, my mother used to tell me your reputation precedes you, and because he's had some off-court issues in the past twice, that were legal issues, and I don't want to gloss over that, but
Yep.
I think that, Memphis and Ja have still been in lockstep for many years. And I think what happens sometimes when you're such an asset to a team, um, the team will get behind you. But then things happen, injuries happen, life happens, and more. And when we're talking more about the player and trades and more, I think, and not about what's happening on the court. If I'm not mistaken, he played about 25 games this season. It's like, well, what else is there to talk about? And so I think for so long, those two sides have been in lockstep until they weren't. I know that there has been, some discrepancies just about, potential extensions and disagreements between the front office staff and Ja and just where they are. It's less about the coach and more about what have you. I'll tell you this. In a world where Doc Rivers is still the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, John and also Giannis Antetokounmpo is still there, and they're trying to figure things out. Let's imagine a world where Doc is no longer there and Taylor Jenkins is brought into Milwaukee, a guy who has been a disciple of Mike Budenholzer, their former head coach, for years. I do believe that Ja Morant coming to Milwaukee would make all the sense in the world, and it will be a reunion of Taylor Jenkins and Ja Morant. But outside of that, I'll be honest with you. I think there are a couple teams that fit like a glove. The Toronto Raptors, for one, a team that has, Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram on that team, and kind of at the beginning of the season came out lightning hot, and then kind of going through the Eastern Conference doldrums, flirting at times with play-in berths, and rather than being a top seven seed. I really do think that, a pairing of Ja Morant and Brandon Ingram would make all the sense in the world. But in order to make that happen, I'd assume you'd have to move Emmanuel Quigley for one. From all indications from what I've gotten from the Toronto Raptors, they have no interest in moving Scotty Barnes, and he's part of the future. Brandon Ingram has intimated to me himself that he loves being teammates with Scotty Barnes, and he sees those two making sweet chin music, so to speak, for a very long time in the NBA's Eastern Conference. So right now, if you ask me, there are three teams that do stand out. In addition to the Milwaukee Bucks, the Toronto Raptors are a team to look out for, but also I look at the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that has been searching for a all-star quality point guard. I can tell you
Sure.
back in the fall, I had reported that there was interest in bringing Kyrie Irving to the Minnesota Timberwolves. It just was a matter of how. You'd have to move a Naz Reid or a Julius Randle to make that happen. So if that's not on the table, what does that look like in Memphis? Every indication from sources within the Timberwolves organization, as well as those close to Anthony Edwards, indicate to me that Anthony Edwards would welcome Kyrie Irving with open arms if he were to come to Minnesota. But what if that doesn't happen mathematically? I think you make a call to the Memphis Grizzlies and see if that's an option as well. So the three teams that I look at are Minnesota, in no particular order: Minnesota, uh, the Toronto Raptors, and the Milwaukee Bucks.
Again, we are joined by Brandon Scoop V. Robinson right here on SiriusXM NBA Radio Channel 86. You can follow all of his scoops, his insight, his work at scoopb.com, someone I have followed for a long time and has been an NBA insider for quite some time. Scoop B, a huge talking point this season has been Giannis Antetokounmpo. What do your sources tell you about, speaking of the Milwaukee Bucks, where he's residing in 2026, 2027? Because look, by his standards, this was a down year for the two-time regular season MVP. You and I both know he finds the right fit. That can very much be the championship favorite come next season. What do your sources tell you in terms of where number 34 ends up for year number 14?
I think it's a mixed bag right now, and specifically because there are so many teams who have reached out to Milwaukee about him, and it seems like a toxic relationship that really doesn't want to end on both sides. As much as they talk trash about each other, or they side eye or subliminally say what they need to say, they both still seemingly find their way back to each other. I mean, when I look at the Milwaukee Bucks organization, I think they've done things that were traditional in their sense for in a world where we constantly bash LeBron for making sure that his son was drafted by the Los Angeles Lakers, the team that he plays for. Giannis comparatively has done it about 2 or 3 times and making sure that his brothers are gainfully employed. I guess he doesn't want to have to give them money, so they make their own money, right? But then
Right.
get the fact that Mike Budenholzer was the head coach of that team. They fired him. Adrian Griffin was a guy that Giannis wanted. They brought him in, then they fired him, and then Doc Rivers came in, who was a consultant when Griffin was the head coach, and then they brought him in. And you look at even bringing in Damian Lillard via trade. They did everything that Giannis wanted, but Giannis has kind of been on this meet my demands for some time. I remember when we were all bored in the house and in the house bored back in 2020 during the novel coronavirus, and I remember that Giannis gave the Bucks a list of players that he would like to be teamed with, and that list included James Harden, Chris Paul. And I believe it was Drew Holiday as well, and they honored his request. He said he would not sign an extension unless you meet that demand. And if I'm not mistaken, Holiday was brought in, and then they won a championship in 2021. And then he stayed, and they were being productive. And then they kind of went on this downturn of just are they a championship contender or are they not? And it seems that this relationship has run its course. But I think that in answer to your question, prior to Masai Ujiri leaving the Toronto Raptors were a team that was in lockstep with Giannis, specifically because of his relationship with Ujiri, because Giannis would prefer to be on an East Coast team. Giannis would like to be on a team where he can command moves kind of similarly to what he was doing in or has done in Milwaukee. To me, I've reported ad nauseum that Miami may not be the best fit. And I think specifically with Bam Adebayo exceeding a lot of people's expectations as not just being a strong defensive presence, but being a scoring juggernaut. I would imagine that there are teams that want more than just Kyle Kuzma and Bobby Portis on the Buck side. And I would imagine that any trade for you know uh, Giannis Antetokounmpo, people are going to want Bam Adebayo. And so you build a team in Miami around Bam and around Giannis. I think that's going to be very difficult because Miami doesn't necessarily have the applicable assets in order to make that happen. So then you look more into teams like the Nets who have assets, whether that's tradable assets as far as draft picks and more. I don't look at the Miami Heat and I don't look at the Knicks just offering Karl Anthony Towns as enough to bring in a player of Giannis's caliber. I also look at teams like the Minnesota Timberwolves. I look at teams like um, uh, maybe even a 3 or 4 team trade in order to bring him in. I don't think a team like San Antonio is necessarily an option at this point because I know for a fact they're trying to build around a Wemby, they're trying to build around Dylan Harper and Stephon Castle and other teams. I think it's going to be a list of teams like I mentioned, like the Brooklyn Nets, like the maybe the Minnesota Timberwolves that could come in and swoop. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that it's just Miami, but I think the bigger option is the Bucks figuring out what the Bucks want and Giannis figuring out what he wants. And if the coaching staff stays or goes, Taylor Jenkins to me fits like a glove as a head coach if you're looking to Lord Ja, because I really do think that a Ja pairing with Giannis would be something exciting to watch. I know that Milwaukee would like to help Giannis or would like to help Ja in this rebrand of
Yes.
sorts in that instance. So I wouldn't rule out a job pairing with Giannis, but I also do know that there are other teams out there that could swoop in and get Ja as well. So I think it's first. I think Giannis is the first domino to fall, and I think that's him figuring out what he wants and the Bucks figuring out what they want in the coaching, situation. And then two, if he stays and they get Ja, could those two pair and coexist together? That's my thought process today.
Again, you can hear all these thought processes and this insight from Scoop B, aka Brandon Scoop B Robinson at scoopb.com. Does a wonderful job covering the NBA for quite some time. I got two more questions for you. I always see you have so much cachet with the best players in the world. That's not an easy platform to have. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of man hours, it takes a lot of trust. I'm going to put you on the spot. The most fascinating NBA figure that you have ever covered is who and why?
Damn. Past or present?
Oh, in its entirety, your entire career since you were 12 years old on Inside the NBA with Ahmad Rashad. Oh, no, excuse, not Inside the NBA. Why am I blanking on that name back in the 90s on NBC? Hang Time. It wasn't Hang Time. That was the show.
So I want to give you some background. So my story actually started. I was a 12-year-old radio co-host with the Nets. I hosted a show called Net Slam Planet. I hosted it with former Net Albert King, a
Right.
woman named Lynn Wilson, and Evan Roberts, who's over at WFAN in New York City. It was called Net Slam Planet. I hosted it for 2 years. I was in the NBA locker rooms in the 90s with any iteration of Tim Duncan, Allen Iverson, Kobe Bryant, Shaq, Karl Malone. And I did that show for 2 years. After I did the show for 2 years, and I went back to being a regular high school kid, and it was the best of both worlds. A lot of times, people who are child prodigies, they get put in fish bowls, and you never get a chance to just be a kid. I will say, as far as the NBA inside stuff, Ahmad Rashad and Willow Bay
Inside Stuff. Excuse me. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
they did a feature on me when I was a kid on the show. And I was, a day in a life kind of situation before social media and more.
Right.
I'm forever thankful for Ahmad and Willow for profiling me and my family, and it's opened doors significantly. It's very difficult for me to narrow it down to one, but I will say that I have many stories that throughout my career that have been fascinating. I've been in the locker room with the Last Dance Bulls, with Michael, Scotty, with Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
I've been around Reggie Miller when he played, and I remember plugging in his Discman into a portable computer speaker, and he's playing Faith Evans and Bad Boy music in the locker room pregame. I've been around Sean Kemp when he was a Cavalier. I've been blessed to be around a lot of people, but that's also extended to today's game. I think a player that has opened doors for me professionally that has been a blessing to this day is probably Kyrie Irving of the Dallas Mavericks. I've been around him since his second year in the league, and our families go back about 30 years to when his dad played in a basketball league in New York City that my uncle was a commissioner of, and his godfather Kyrie Irving, or excuse me, his godfather Rod Strickland played in that basketball league. They were all in high school, and so our paths have crossed both in New York and New Jersey quite a bit. I will say that a person that has had a similar impact like that more recently has been Ja Morant, and just the access and the things that I've been able to do. But I think LeBron James has been another person that has been gracious with me with his time and more. But narrowing it down to just one, that's like asking a parent of five to pick their favorite kid. That's very difficult.
Listen, you've had a lot of inside access to a lot of these marquee superstars, Scoopy. And look. The truth is, I'm glad you're kind of shedding some light on this because Kyrie Irving is somebody that hasn't always had the best reputation with the media. Ja Morant, certainly this past year, has not had the best reputation with the media. And granted, even in a down year, he's having 20 points per game and 8 assists per game. So still, this cat can play. And then LeBron James, the whole beef with him and Stephen A. Smith, and there's been murmurs and rumors all the time surrounding LeBron James that if you don't cover him the way he wants to be covered, he's not going to give you access. So, for you to be so positive about these three individuals and kind of shed a different light than what most people are hearing these past few years about these three iconic, names in NBA history, that's awesome. So I'm glad that you have those relationships with those three guys. And I want to go back to your point. You look at Bronny James in year two, it's night and day from what he was as a rookie. And no disrespect to the Antetokounmpo brothers, he's better right now than any of those guys.
Yeah.
So, there is some truth to nepotism with LeBron James and having his son in the league, but you can't blame Bronny for that. And Bronny, to his credit, has stepped up and been tremendous in year number two. And let's be honest, without Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic, they may need him, Scoop B, in these next couple of games on the floor. So I do appreciate where you're coming from. And again, we are joined by Brandon Scoop B Robinson, and you can find all his work at scoopb.com. Has done a wonderful job covering the sport for decades. I want to get you out with this. We work in an industry where it's a lot of look at me and it's a lot of here's my scoop, no pun intended, and here's my intel. What I've respected about you from afar is how important it is of you playing the role of mentor to so many people. Why has that been such a crucial part of this business for you, where so many other individuals won't even pick up a phone for someone in this industry if it means helping someone else out?
Because I've been on the other side of it. There are big name reporters that people read and respect who um 11, 12 years ago would not give me the time of day, or because I didn't kiss the ring, or because I was not just in that good old boys club that didn't do that for me. And so I feel like it's important because the higher you go up on the elevator, it's your responsibility to send it back down. And I don't have the time or the bandwidth to help everybody, but I also think it's what you say and what you don't say. I'll give you a quick example of that. Um,
Yes.
I was in New Orleans for about 8 days, and I was at their game on Monday, no, on Tuesday night. And there was, when you go into an NBA arena in the media room, there's a seating chart that says where you're sitting, and me and my producer, our name was where we were supposed to be. And we go to that area, and the woman who's standing there is like, "No, you're not supposed to be there." And I took a picture of it, and showed her like, "This is where we're supposed to be." She goes, "No, go to this section over here." We go to that other section. They were giving us a hard time. And they said, "Well, you need to go all the way up to the third floor." Like I was eye level with the jumbotron. That's how high up we were. And I ran into this woman, and she was asking me questions. And basically, I didn't pull rank. It just wasn't necessary. I actually didn't mind sitting all the way up top because I could hear myself think. The woman comes back and goes, "They made an area for you to sit, the original spot where we went. So
Right.
go back down." I tell you that when we first went to that first area, there were these two young kids who were looking at me and introducing themselves to me. Had I started pulling rank, do you know who I am? Do you know this? Do you know that? I I really wanted them to move because they were really in my seat and I knew it, but like how how you treat somebody, like you never know if that's the future you or the future somebody else. And if I handled that a different way, I would have like created a monster before those kids were even college age.
Sure.
And that was important to me. Like you never know who you impact, you never knew who you influence, you never know who you inspire, but at the same time, you got to pick and choose your do you know who you are. And I don't know that I really gave a damn about pulling rank at a game between the Pelicans and the Utah Jazz.
No, I hear that. And Scoopy, I know speaking to a lot of people in our business, you have lent a helping hand to so many, and it's amazing. There's people like you. I like to include myself in that category, but people like Rob Parker, Bob Costas. I don't know if you've ever come across him, but this man will pick up the phone for essentially anybody, and offer advice. And this is someone that is the very top of our business and has been for quite some time. If I've ever reached out to Stephen A. He'll get back to me right away. He may not give me the answer I want, but he'll get back to me right away. So, it's good to see people like yourself that are succeeding at a high level and also giving back, to the next generation. So I just wanted to make sure that I highlighted that, and I applaud you for that, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for the opportunity to be myself. And you keep shining your damn self. You're doing the thing over at Sirius XM Radio. You guys listening, you got a good guy. You got a good seat here, man. You're doing your thing.
I appreciate that. Scoop B, we're going to have you on again for sure, as the season progresses and as the stakes get even higher. But it's been a pleasure to have you on the SiriusXM NBA radio postgame show. And again, go to scoopb.com, because you're going to get insight like you will from no other destination. So it's worth your time. And Scoop B, thanks again for your time, brother. Great to talk shop with you in NBA.
You as well. Thank you for the opportunity to be myself.